Hey Jabbers, today we have Kayla Madden from Madden Events. And Kayla is not your cousin's wedding planner. She's a fashion school girly, a corporate America dropout, which I think we all are, turned full service planner and designer for down-to-earth couples who want out of this world designs serving New England and New York. At Madden Made, they are committed to offering a fun, BS-free planning experience for couples who aren't afraid to break the rules to design an epic, one-of-a-kind celebration. They are also fierce advocates for LGBTQT equality, social justice, and human rights. Kayla, thanks so much for being here.
I am so excited. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to chat with you and hear more about your story. So, yeah, share with us kind of, I know you said corporate America dropout. Share with us a little bit more about how you got into wedding planning and starting your company.
Yeah, so graduated college, went back for my MBA, working full time in corporate, and was just like, I do not like this. I found myself not wanting promotions because I just did not want to do the job that I was doing. And I was always the kind of person who thought I would just like get a corporate job, be okay with it, have my weekends, and like that would be enough. But that was not enough. And I helped plan my sister's wedding in 2015 because she has like total social anxiety, like doesn't want to get on a phone with anyone, doesn't want to speak with anyone, doesn't want to make like big decisions. So I kind of took the lead for her on that. And that was my first introduction into like planning a wedding. I will say before that, I come from a very large Portuguese family. So I was like a junior bridesmaid and a bridesmaid like 100 times. So like always grew up at weddings, attending weddings, being in weddings. So like was very familiar with the world and kind of what that looked like. So yeah, I started getting an itch to do it more. I was doing it for friends and acquaintances and things like that. And then in 2020, in January, was kind of when I like made the decision to myself that I wanted to start my own business and kind of just see where it took me. And I launched my business in October of 2020.
That's
Wild,
awesome. It's
wild.
funny when people, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Pause because I bet I'm
Yeah.
gonna come in delayed, aren't I?
Yeah, I didn't hear what you said.
Okay. No, that's okay. We'll edit this out. Maybe I'll raise a finger when I'm ready to talk in case because I think there's going to be a delay on my end for some reason. So, okay, no, go ahead, Carrie.
Um, okay, sorry. What was I gonna say? It's crazy when you say 2020 because I often think like that was last year. And then now I'm like, oh, that was 5 years ago. But also props to you for starting a business during a pandemic.
I literally was just going to say the same thing because what a wild time, Kayla, to jump in and say, "Oh, weddings are like." Were you seeing other wedding planners postpone weddings and like kind of live in this chaotic, apocalyptic event time? And you were like, "Let's start a business."
Yeah, so it's really crazy because I had decided earlier in the year that I was going to do it. So I actually was a 2020 bride myself. So I was going through the postponement process and like deciding what we were going to do and all of that personally. So I stuck with it. And honestly, I kind of think it was the best thing that happened to my business because there were so many weddings and so many vendors needed the following year in my market especially. So I feel like I kind of got like a little like buzz on like a head start because there were just people who would honestly book anyone at that point that was available.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
sorry, did you say what you did in corporate before?
I didn't. So I was actually a buyer for 5 years. So I bought like grocery items for a large wholesale retailer. And then after that, I did global brand franchise marketing for a major toy company for a little bit. So that was a little bit more creative. So that was kind of fun for a bit, but it also taught me a lot about marketing and just creating a brand.
I was gonna say, was it? the lack of creativity that was making you want to leave? Like, because corporate, there's certainly roles in marketing departments that can be very creative, but like you were saying, you don't want to get a promotion because we all know the higher up you get in the company on a corporate level, the more paperwork and managing of other people it becomes, and you lose any little creative job aspect that you had. So was that what you were feeling, or was it more of like the structure of being in a corporate setting that was you were craving a little more that self-employed life?
Yeah, totally. So in my first role when I was a buyer, which is what I did for the bulk of my corporate career, it was just not creative at all. It was all analytical. It was all about the numbers, and there were moments that were really cool and fun, but overall I just was getting like I lost my total creative mindset, which is something I've had my whole life. So that was hard for me, which is why I left that job to do this global marketing job because I thought that would help bring out more of that creative side. And while it did, at the end of the day, you're still working for somebody who's going to tell you, no, we can't do that, or we don't have the money to do that, or, whatever the case. So it felt like any like creative idea you had like a very short ceiling that was like, no, we're not going to do that. So it just, that's kind of the part of the corporate world that I just realized really quickly. I was like, I don't want to do this. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel fulfilled. I never felt like, yeah, we completed this project and that felt so good. Like it always just felt like a grind going on to the next thing.
Okay, and that's like shocking in the sense that if people out there don't know what type of stuff you do, Kayla, you are one of the most creative people in the industry. And I mean, you have this reputation that you're also adored by all of your clients. So I want us to start talking about this because how do you get them obsessed so much with your designs that are also very intentional, and kind of what approach do you use to kind of stand out, because you truly are very different than other planners in terms of design. So you've had this creativity bottled up inside you and now it's just like bursting at the seams.
Literally, like I'm just like, let me do anything and everything. I mean, it's really hard to identify what makes your approach unique, right? Because you only really know your approach. So for me, it's so natural. I mean, I obviously, have a lot of industry friends and see kind of what they're doing. But I think I keep coming back to what my clients say. And something that they say over and over again is that working together feels like they're working with a professional, an expert, but that's someone that also feels like their friend. So they're building that trust in my knowledge, but also they're trusting me as just like a person on a, person to person level too.
Do you feel like you kind of had that connection right away, or did you have some clients in the beginning, like we've all had, that you were like, oh my gosh, like these are not my ideal clients for me?
Yeah, I would be lying if I said I did not have those. And you know what? Sometimes they still find their way in, and that's just gonna happen. But I feel like I'm very lucky to have the majority of my clients be, ideal or close to or a really good fit for me. And I think that's ultimately just because I never try to pretend to be something I'm not. So it's like very clear who I am and what I do. So if someone starts working with me and like that's not their thing, I'm kind of like, well, shame on you. Like, there was enough information out there for you to know that this wasn't a good fit.
Okay, so I love the friendship piece in a way, but how do you balance the boundaries, friendship, professional, that kind of stuff? Because that's where I think I get a little stressed out with. I know a few people in the industry that are so good at being friendly with their clients, but I fear that sometimes it maybe crosses a boundary where you're like this hype person and buddies, but then it's like, oh my God, are you getting texts in the middle of the day about questions? Are you able to like take the weekend off when you're not working? Like, how does that go when you're in that relationship? Or do you set the boundaries so clearly early on that everyone has full understanding and respect of them?
Yeah, I think it's honestly a little bit of that, Gabby, but I also think that I kind of like suss it out as we go. Like there are some clients that I would like invite over to my house for a drink. Like we're just on that level. And there are some clients where I would not do that with, right? So I think I kind of just see how it goes and based off the person and kind of play it by ear with like how close I allow that relationship to get. I also run things very organized. Like we have a planning portal, we have organized meetings, I have agendas for our meetings. So I feel like because I still bring that level of structure, we communicate through email. Because I bring that level of structure, I think they kind of like adhere to it and that. And then, like I said, as like we build on that relationship, that's when I kind of let things, maybe get a little looser in some areas. Maybe we'll go out for a drink after their walkthrough or, use some time to just connect on a person to person level and just get to know each other a little bit.
I love that. So, can you share how, like, walk us through a typical client journey from inquiry to event day? And I know you already spoke a little bit too of like how you build trust, but maybe touch on a little bit of that too.
Yeah, totally. So, I get an inquiry. We want to make sure it's a good fit early on before we hop on a call with them. I don't necessarily want to just like negate someone very quickly, but at the same time, like, I don't want to waste their time or my time if it's not a good budget fit, style fit. So, we'll ask a lot of questions up front. If we feel like it's potentially a good fit, we'll hop on a call. I always do video calls for discovery calls. I just recently had a conversation with other planners where they don't do video calls and they thought it was so wild that I did. And I was like, my mind was blown because I have to do a video call. Like I have to like scope out the mannerisms and like vice versa. I want them to kind of, scope out my vibe and mannerisms too. So I always do a video discovery call and I try to make it like a conversation, asking them where they're at in the process and just getting to know them, seeing if there's areas we can connect on personally. I got married in Vermont. So anytime someone's getting married in Vermont, I'm like, I got married in Vermont and, finding little connections as we can. And then once a client books me, we have a formal kickoff call. So this is where we kind of get down and dirty with like what they want, what they don't want, all the, vendor partners they want to work with, like what they have in mind, what they're not sure about, and just really understand their priorities and how we kind of want to create what I call like the blueprint for their planning process based off of those priorities. And obviously their budget, comes out of that call as well. And we work on that and break that down together. From there, we have monthly calls that are, scheduled monthly calls. If things come up that we need to have additional calls, we will. And then we kind of do our planning process in 3 phases. I call like the VIP phase, which is like, booking all your vendors that book out quickly or vendors that are really important to you. And that kind of happens right, front loaded into that planning process. Then we have the design phase, which is obviously my favorite part. That happens around 10 months out or, anywhere between 6 to 10 months out, again, depending on what their wedding planning timeline is. And then we have kind of the wrap up phase, which is, your timeline logistics, your vendor coordination, your walkthroughs, all of that. And then for their wedding, execution, we support full scale. So oversee, any production deliveries and then manage all of their wedding events. So that's how we work together. And like I said, like I'm finding ways to like, are we getting a drink after a meeting one day or can we meet in person one day just to kind of build those little connections, especially before the design process, because I like to go into the design process already kind of like knowing what they're into, because it just makes the process a lot more creative and fun.
Okay, quickly about the design. So, what are some questions that you ask them to incorporate their personality or their likes into the design? Because I think you do a great job at this, and it's not just a color palette. Like, there are little details that you find in each couple that you turn into something that makes sense at a wedding. It's not like you're going to go and get a sculpture. I mean, maybe you will actually, but a sculpture that they love that they saw at the Louvre in Paris and you've replicated it and put it in the center of their dance floor. I mean, think about that. That could be a really good idea. Actually, like make it into a
And
fountain. I think that could be, you heard it
she's
here.
like, I've already done that, Gabby.
Like
I've
it's
already
actually
done
fun.
Probably. But like, how do you make it applicable to a wedding setting?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's easier than other times. Like sometimes it comes more naturally. I'm like, oh, this would be really cool. But you mentioned like what questions do I ask? I ask a lot of questions. So I send a design questionnaire before our kickoff where I ask, specific questions like, are there colors that you like, don't like, buzzwords that you want your wedding to look and feel like. And, I ask all those sort of more basic standout design questions. But then I ask things like, what is your ideal date night? What are your top, 3 vacations you've been on and why? Or what's your favorite piece of furniture in your home? What's your favorite piece of art in your home? Is there like a movie or a TV show that has meaning? And then what I use the design kickoff call to do is get like them to elaborate on those answers. So if they tell me like, oh, there's a blue chair in my house that I love, right? I'm like, what is it that you love? What does it look like? And then maybe like out of that, a story will come, oh, well, we were here and we saw it. And then from there, I just spark like, other sort of ideas. And then, yeah, I just kind of like brainstorm ways we can just turn it into something for the wedding. Sometimes it's a practical something, and sometimes it's a statue in the middle of the dance floor type of thing where it's just kind of a moment. But yeah, that's kind of what I do to dig in a little deeper and just see, what I can pull from them.
Do you have a lot of clients who, I guess, would you say the majority of your clients come to you not knowing like where they're going with the design, what they want, don't have like Pinterest board going, or is it sort of like 50-50? Because I think sometimes I find like people have a good idea, but it's like all over the place, or they have like a good direction, and then are you just taking that and like elevating it from there and really honing in on like their color palette? What do you find is most typical?
Yeah, I'd say it's like 50-50. So like 50% of my couples are just like have no clue. And I'm really pulling from these things that they're sharing. And honestly, that's my favorite. Like if I could do that 100% of the time, I would. I think it's so fun. And I think that's where the most like fresh ideas come from. And then I'd say the other 50% have like colors in mind, or, maybe they have a Pinterest board. I'm like kind of an asshole when it comes to my clients' design, if I'm being totally honest. Like if they have a Pinterest board, I'm always like, just letting you know, we're not doing anything on your Pinterest board. Like we're not replicating that. That's so boring. And I'll say it in like a fun, funny way like that. So I'm not like being a total asshole, but I'm kind of being like, guys, like that's been done. We're not going to do that. And then, I also will elevate. So, I had a couple last year who was like, we love greenery. And they had kind of that like 2016-ish looking greenery on like their Pinterest. And I was like, we're not doing that. And they were like such a cool couple too. So I was like, I know that they're just not seeing the things I
Yeah.
see. Like they're getting the like random person on the street algorithm on Pinterest. I'm getting the like person in a creative role algorithm on Pinterest. So I'm like, no, we're gonna do like this. And then I show them like, how I see that, what's the word? Just like elevated, right? The elevated, fresher version of that. And then they're like, yeah, that's like what we want. I'm like, yeah. Like sometimes it takes like a little bit of that kind of like, I have to act like I'm so confident in what we're doing and like we're going to give you the best thing. We don't want to give you that. Like your friend did that, and it's making comments like that I think helps them open up their minds a little bit to unique and fresh ideas.
And okay, how did you get to a point where you confidently sell your design? Like, I'm sure that over time, as you deliver these design, I'm not even going to call them a design board, Kayla, because I know you and I have talked about this, and your design deck is like 116 pages or something insane, which I absolutely love. But how I'm sure once you deliver those and the feedback that you get and they're obsessed, you're probably like, okay, nailed it. Now you trust your gut every time. But how do you confidently step outside the design box? Because I think I'll dip my toe and I'll be like, you know what, I'm going for it. I'm pitching this wild idea. And then I got feedback that they loved it. I'm like, really? Really? You loved it? Okay, let's go. But sometimes I'm really scared because I see their Pinterest board and it's so basic that I'm like, man, if I even try, I'm too scared to try something outside of their comfort zone because I am so afraid of the rejection, you know? So how do you kind of go into that?
Oh, I'm scared all the time. I like pee my pants every time I email out a design deck. Like I can't, and if I don't get like an email back being like, I love it, I'm like full like panic. Like I'm like, oh my God, I spent 55 hours on this and they despise it, you know? So no, I still get nervous all the time. I've also like changed the way I've done it. You know, I've done it before where like I send it out and I let them give me comments, or I show them in live time for the first time. And I finally have what I think is like my sweet spot. So what I do is I actually schedule the design meeting with them and then I send them the deck 24 hours before the design meeting. So they have 24 hours to like look it over, but they don't have enough time to like share it with every single person in their life, look at it for too long, start hating things because they've kind of like talked themselves out of things. So it gives them time to like look it over and have initial thoughts. And then I walk them through the whole deck. And again, this is something like I just started doing and like it's what I do, but I talk to them like this is their design. Like I don't say like we could do this, or like what do you think, or we could do this. And it's just like here's your design, we're going to do this and it's going to look like this, and the reason why I did it is because that's going to balance this. And I find that like as I start explaining why I make decisions, or you know why I chose, oh, we're going to get this linen because it's going to create additional texture on this, and then this color is going to match your candlesticks, and then they're like, oh, okay, like they're starting to understand it a bit more. And yes, sometimes they do want to still request, you know, small changes or tweaks, but I would say like 9 out of 10 times they're maybe making like a small change or tweak or just like foregoing, you know, an element or two, but they're usually like on board with the whole deck. And I truly think it's because I just say it to them like they have no choice.
I think that's such a great approach because I'm always like, what do you think? Do you like that? Like, I feel like I'm more timid and being like, I want your feedback because I'm worried that they like hate it and like they're not saying it to me on the call because they're gonna like come back and like 24 hours later and be like, we actually don't like any of that. So, but I feel like that's such a confident approach because then they really do start to understand why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, and I mean honestly, like I'm very upfront like early on in the process. Like this is my design process. Like you're not handpicking linens with me, you're not handpicking chairs with me. Like I'm doing it for you because I know what's out there. I know what's going to look the best. I know what's going to work. I know what's in your budget, what's not. So like I'm not giving them like I don't give them options for like what rental company we're using, or you know, I'll give them options for things that are a little more personal, like a floral designer or like a stationer. Maybe I'll give them like two options, but like again, very slim down. But most cases I'm just like, this is it. This is what we're doing. And like I said, I'm very upfront about that from the start. Because you know, I did have couples early on that I like had to go and redo the whole deck. And like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm at this point where I'm like, you either book me because you want me to design a wedding for you, or you don't want me to design a wedding for you. And that's totally okay because I mean, I'm definitely not everybody's cup of tea.
Do you have couples that by the time they've hired you, do they have other vendors? I mean, aside from venue, perhaps, do they, you know, because some florists have a cult following and maybe it's not aligned with your vibe, but for some reason they love them. I think my biggest challenge is photography personally, where I'm like, this design is going to be incredible, but your photographer is not it. So how do you go about, if that's ever happened, how do you kind of navigate that?
Yeah, I would say most of the time they have either nothing or maybe a venue. I have had times where, and I asked this early on too, like I'm like, if you don't have any vendors book, are there any vendors you want to book? Because that way, if they tell me some of those other vendors that I know just like aren't aligned with like my design style, I can kind of like, decide if it's going to be a good fit or not. But yeah, I've had them sometimes have, oh, we want to book this florist or we have this photographer. Photographer is so tricky as a planner. Like it sounds so selfish, but nothing is worse than like you create this beautiful wedding design and then like the photographer is just not the vibe. I've hired my own detail photographers before. I also bought a film camera so I could start taking some detail photos myself. So I think there's like little ways that like if everything else feels aligned, you can kind of like, get around that. But I'd say like 90% of my couples are either coming to me with like no venue or a venue only.
Are you telling couples in a discovery call how you manage your design process? Because I was just thinking about this for myself. I'm like, the weight of like just making a decision for them would take so much like stress away from everybody because I've been in meetings where I'm like with the bride and she's like going through 8 different linens and like going back and forth because she's like worried about the budget, worried about design. And I'm sitting there being like, I don't like that. But like, she wants to be a part of it. And so I'm curious if that's just something you're upfront with on the discovery call so that you're not running into that issue later on.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much tell them that like I get to know you and then I create off a design based off of that. And I always tell them when I present you a design, it's not concepts or ideas. It's here's the plan. Here's what we're doing. I've already sourced it for you. Here's how much it's going to cost. And I say, and then from there, you just go, yep, sounds good, approve. And we book all of those vendors and we solidify all of those items. And I tell them, like, it's so you're not going through the question, the decision. It becomes decision fatigue. Like
100%.
no person who's not like in the field should be choosing between the BBJ linen catalog online. Like that is a literal nightmare for just a couple getting married for the first time to be in, right? So I just tell them immediately. I also ask a lot of questions. Like I'm like, how much say do you want in the design? Like how specific of ideas do you have? Like I ask those because if they're like, oh my gosh, I really want to be in control of the design, like I'll straight up tell them like, there's planners who will love that, but like that's not a good fit for me. I always ask people like if they consider themselves type A because I don't vibe with like type A couples. I'm like, you don't need spreadsheets. I have spreadsheets. So I just learned as I went through bad situations or challenging situations, like to just ask more questions and be upfront because I also don't want to put them in a situation where like they're unhappy with the process because it's not what they wanted. Like it's a disservice to myself, but it's also a disservice to them.
Mhm.
And I will say, I love that you mentioned this also, not just for your sake of them following your process, but their experience with a planner may not be what you offer or what someone, whatever that is. And I think this is really important because I've had an experience where I think this couple had such a different idea of what a wedding planner is. And to them, it almost had a little bit of a personal assistant vibe to it because it's what we see in movies, right? Like you're there with a clipboard running around.
Following them around.
Yeah. And I had to talk to them and say, hey, it's not that. Like you have to organize your own calendar with your due dates. I have them listed here, but if you need to put them on your Google Calendar, you do that. I'm not going to send you a calendar invite for everything or, whatever the case may be. But I do think they also don't know what it's like necessarily to work with a wedding planner. And so all of these pre-call expectations and guidelines is super, super helpful. And I lack in that department. Like I really can do better there. And every time I have these conversations with our guests or just Carrie and I'm like, okay, note, I need to just set those boundaries, set the expectation of how this is going to go. And it makes everybody happier in the end. Me, them, there's no resentment. All goes well.
Exactly. And I just treat it like a conversation. Like, I'm just like, what's your work style? Like, on the call, I'm just like, what's your work style like? How involved do you want to be? Like, have you been envisioning this day since you were a kid, or are you kind of like, I'm open? Like I act like it's a conversation because at the end of the day, I really am trying to see if we're a good fit for each other. And I find that they're super receptive, and it's really awkward sometimes, but I have told people on calls multiple times, like, I don't think we're good. Another thing is like I have like a very strict, like, no parents policy. Like I don't meet with parents, don't email parents. And that's something I always bring up in that first call too, because if parents are going to be heavily involved, that is totally fine. But like, I just know that they're not the best experience working with me.
Gabby, are you still here?
I am. I heard everything, but I think I'm frozen.
Oh no.
No, sorry. I,
Did it?
She's frozen on mine.
yeah, same. I was like, she hasn't moved her face.
Oh,
Oh, no, I thought it was my internet at first.
No,
can
I
you?
think it must be hers. In the
Ugh.
background. And I just got those in the mail the other day, and I'm like, they look so familiar.
Wait, did it
You're
pick
back.
it?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, it booted me. Oh
Oh,
shit! Did it keep recording?
Gabby, you're totally cutting out.
Yeah. Let me see. Okay. Um, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, now I can hear you.
Gabby, it
Yeah.
said stop recording like when you hopped off.
Yeah.
Okay, and then it came
And
back on.
now it's recording again.
Yeah, and I wonder, okay, hopefully when I exit completely, it'll save the file. Dear God, I hope. Because it booted me without me asking to log off. So, ay, ay, ay. Okay, well, I heard every.
Mm.
I imagine it's just my side. Oh, it's why? Why today? Hmm.
That's
Um,
always how it happens.
Um, I forget what you ended on. It was a good little
I said
bit,
that
but
I
I'm trying to figure out where to pick back up.
yeah, I said that I also bring up like the work with parents
Oh,
on
right,
the
right, right.
discovery call as well, because I don't want to work with them if I know that's going to be a big part of their process.
Yeah. Gabby, are you good to start?
yeah, I mean, see, as soon as I put my camera, oh no, now am I frozen on your end?
It's just your profile picture that's up.
Okay, I'm gonna turn this back off then. Okay, I'll try to limit that. I don't know. I mean, I can hear you guys, but then it shows me that your cameras are frozen too. So,
Can you leave this up and like mute yourself and then like join from your phone and see if that.
I don't think it would record though,
Well, if you just
right?
leave this recording going,
Oh,
just like mute this mic.
it'll the audio will be different because I won't have the mic, right?
Uh,
I think. I'll leave my camera off.
do you want to end this record? Do you want to end this recording and everyone just like try to log back in?
Okay. Yeah, let's try that really quick. We only have a few more questions anyway.
Okay.
Okay, one sec.
Or client wedding that's out.
Okay, perfect.
The part about you not having parents and a part of your process and system, I think that's such a bold move because it happens to me all the time. And sometimes it's great having them be a part of it, and other times you want to pull your hair out. But I think that's such a good precedent for you to set up front because it makes everyone's jobs a little bit easier because I feel like then clients aren't, persuaded to go in a different direction because they have, this parent's voice talking to them.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a scary choice to make and something to stand on, especially, as I'm working with couples who do have larger budgets, a lot of those coming from their parents, but there are couples out there whose parents are okay with contributing, but not being like part of the planning process. And I always tell them, like, if you need to navigate questions and things with them on your end, like that's okay. Or if your mom loves flowers and she wants to come to the mock-up, like of course you can come to the mock-up, but at the end of the day, like I need to understand who my clients are because I can only accept, one answer and take that as, the answer. And it gets a little tricky when there's other people involved.
Yeah, for sure. Kayla, can you share with us a favorite client wedding or story that has stuck with you over the years?
Yeah, I had a couple a few years ago, Rossi and Dee. I will name call them because I love them dearly. But they had just the most incredible relationship and story. So they had all these like wild similarities. They had the same birthday. They had the same like childhood curtains and comforter in their bedrooms. Their like grandparents had the same name. And then there was this like book that had your birthday, and then it would tell you who your soulmate, like what your soulmate's birthday was. I forget the book, but I'm sure someone listening knows what I'm talking about. And when they looked up their birthday, the soulmate was someone who had the same birthday,
What?
which was them. Yes. So it was just such a wild like story of coincidences with them. And they just had a really special relationship. Dee is non-binary and they announced their name change, like legal name change during their ceremony, and it was really emotional. And they chose a new last name together to take after the wedding. And like the bartender was crying. It was just a very emotional wedding. We're just the sweetest couple, and I think of them very often.
That's a really cool story. What do you see as your best advice to someone who wants to build a business that clients rave about, like yours? And also, I think just really standing confidently in their process. Like, it sounds like your process is very, like, thought out and you're very confident in implementing it each time, not just in the design process, but also in communication. So, what's your best advice for, I think, planners that have been in it for a while, or even just up and coming planners?
Yeah, I think honestly, the biggest thing is to just genuinely be excited about your work and your clients. Like, I am just so jazzed. Even, before we started recording, I was talking with Gabby and I was telling her about this weekend's wedding, and I'm just genuinely so excited. And I think that that translates, and your couples see how you're excited you are and how passionate you are and how you care just as much as them. And I think it makes a really big difference in how they see your part in the wedding and why they, think of you past the wedding. And then in terms of just like the process and just like really nailing that, I think it's having one and changing it as your business changes and develops and all of that. But I also think it's like treating every client like its own process. Like I never make it feel like too cookie cutter of a process. I change things, I customize things in order to kind of suit their needs and make them feel like, hey, this is tailored to you process as well.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Oh,
Uh, I was like, Gabby, are you still there?
yeah. But now can you see me? No.
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Well, who knows? Maybe this will
Yes.
be delayed for the rapid fire questions. But Kayla, a few fun things before we wrap up your episode, which
Oh
I
my God, poor Gabby.
Oh,
Her
shoot.
internet today is just not good.
Not happening.
okay.
Well, I can do the rapid fire questions and then just sort of end it, Gabby.
Everyone's
Sorry.
gonna be like, where's
Sorry,
Gabby
Kayla.
on this podcast?
This like has never happened before. I'm sorry. Thank you for being gracious.
Oh my gosh, I don't care. I just feel bad for poor Gabby.
Okay, maybe we'll do the rapid fire questions and then we can just kind of wrap up from there because I feel bad that I don't want to take too much of your time today, too. Okay, so Kayla, some rapid fire questions for you. Some of these might have a little bit longer of an answer. I know, let's see.
Hey,
Oh, she's back.
I don't
Gabby.
know what's happening. I think
Abby.
we maybe just wrap up the episode and then we can maybe just for fun do a post where we ask Kayla rapid fire questions and have her answer, or you can try one more time. I don't know what's going on.
You honestly sound good right now.
Yeah.
Okay, well, go for it.
Yeah, you sound great right now.
Okay.
Let's do the rapid fire questions. Maybe Abby, you ask a few to start since your mic is good right now, and then I can finish the rest and end the
All right.
episode.
Okay, Kayla, here we go. Rapid fire questions. Favorite flower?
Oh shit.
Oh, for fuck's sakes. Fuck
Oh
it.
my God, poor
Forget it.
Gabby.
Forget it. Okay, I'm just muting myself for the rest of the
Gabby, we can't.
I know. I'm just muting myself. Just
Okay, I'll just do
wrap
the
it up.
rapid fire questions. Yeah, all good.
Gabby, you can film like a fake outro so
Yeah.
people don't wonder where you went.
What happened to her in the end? Okay, Kayla, rapid fire questions to end the episode. What is your favorite flower?
A red poppy.
Hmm. Favorite wedding you've ever done?
Oh, this actually kind of goes with my first answer, but definitely my all red wedding I did at the Wythe Hotel in Brooklyn last fall.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
It was
Uh,
very.
favorite wedding trend?
Ooh, I guess this is considered a trend. I would say no wedding parties.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Love it.
Least favorite wedding trend and why?
Okay, so I feel like this is starting to trend down, but I'm still gonna say it because I feel like it's still happening. I would say champagne towers.
Hmm.
Like it's a waste of champagne because you can't actually drink it. It's so dangerous setting up the champagne tower. Like it is so fragile. And I just feel like people do it just for a photo and it actually has no like meaning or anything else. So I'm out on it.
Yeah, let's get rid of it. One thing that excites you most on a wedding day?
Selfishly, the reception reveal is my favorite part. So, yeah, I get super jazzed and super excited just to let my couple see their design for the first time is very fun for me.
Yeah, it's all your hard work. One thing that makes you cringe on a wedding day?
Ooh, when vendors are like counting down the hours until they get to go home, like out loud.
Yeah.
I'm just like, we're working here. This is the best and greatest, most expensive day of their lives. Can you just like pretend to be into it for the next 5 hours?
Yes, for sure. And then lastly, one thing you wish couples would stop doing.
Ooh, I would say having too many toasts or like too many formalities because I feel like I'm always like when they have too many toasts or formalities, I feel like I'm constantly like interrupting my couple's time during the reception to be like, oh, we're gonna do this next thing. Oh, we're gonna do this next thing. And I'm like, they always look like they're having so much fun, and I wish they could just continue having fun. So I always try to encourage them to like narrow it down. Like, do you actually want to do all these things, or are you just doing them because you feel like you have to do them?
Yeah. Kayla, this was such a great conversation. Thank you for joining us. I feel like it's so helpful just to chat with other planners to see how they do their process, and I think it helps people to refine their own and be like, maybe are doing that or just like implementing different ways to go about, the communication with clients or even the design process. But thank you so much for sharing this. And just, I think, your clients love you and it's so fun just to hear your process and hear more about your business. So thanks so much for being here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that you guys had me here. It was so fun chatting with you guys. And yeah, I think it's really important, like you said, to have these conversations because there's like never it's a never ending learning in this world and industry, and I think it's always helpful to kind of hear what people are doing. So I'm glad you enjoyed the conversation, and thank you again for having me.
Yeah. All right, Jabbers, we will see you in 2 weeks. Thanks so much for being here. Bye.
Uh,